Good morning. I trust everybody has had something to eat as we begin a very exciting day at the Tech Summit. On behalf of the Bermuda Business Development Agency, it is my great pleasure to welcome everyone to our first Bermuda Tech Summit. This event sits at the heart of the Bermuda Tech Week 2019 and is hosted in partnership with the fintech business unit. My sincere thanks go to the fintech team and to all of our sponsors for helping to make this event happen. A special welcome to our guests and speakers from overseas. Thank you for joining us. If you have been here before, welcome back. If this is your first visit, I hope you have a wonderful opportunity to explore everything our beautiful country has to offer. We are also privileged to have with us today Bermuda's Premier, the Honorable David Burt. Welcome, Mr. Premier. We look forward to hearing from you a little later this morning. Despite all the dramatic technological transformations we have seen in our workplaces, our homes, and our lives, particularly since the emergence of high-speed internet, the future of technology today promises even greater benefits to societies and economies than could ever have been imagined, and at a faster rate than ever before. The recently launched Bermuda First Future State Report highlights that the rapid rate of technological change is the factor whose impact we know will be significant, but its extent is a challenge to accurately dimension. Essentially, it is becoming increasingly difficult to comprehend what the future would look like in 5 years' time, let alone in 10 or 20. How will the world as we know it change? How will we live our daily lives? How will society be impacted? Indeed, how will we work, live, and play? Perhaps I should ask Alexa. Amazon's remarkable voice assistant, powered by artificial intelligence, is just one small example. But it speaks to how new technologies are fundamentally reshaping our expectations of what's possible, not only as individuals, but as businesses and governments too. What was once deemed to be impossible is now just a standard part of everyday life. Our children grow up thinking this is the way it always was. However, the grand promise of these life-changing technological advancements, from AI to blockchain to the Internet of Things, will only be fully realized if there are sophisticated legislative structures and regulatory frameworks in place to support their development, thus allowing them to flourish. Governments and regulators will need to be nimble, informed, and open-minded if they are to keep pace with their disruptive impact, responding to issues raised in an efficient, pragmatic, and progressive manner. And that is where Bermuda comes in. We in Bermuda know well that those who innovate stand to maintain a clear competitive advantage in international markets and will reap the benefits. Technology is transforming business models, and they are never going back. In the same way that we can no longer imagine life without the internet. And so the government of Bermuda, led by our Premier, has taken bold and pioneering strides to embrace emerging technologies, positioning us to be ahead of the curve and diversifying our economy to drive growth and job creation. Last year, Bermuda became the first country in the world to enact comprehensive laws and regulations governing initial coin offerings and digital asset businesses. I am not going to expand on this groundbreaking legislation now because we will hear a lot more about it during the course of today. But it is this dynamic and forward-thinking approach that has always set Bermuda apart and continues to do so, arguably making Bermuda more relevant now, today, than ever before. For those of you who do not know the Bermuda Business Development Agency, we are an independent public-private partnership that exists to promote Bermuda and its global platform for doing business internationally. Our ultimate objective is to encourage inward direct investment and growth for the benefit of the country, the people, and the business community. Technology is now one of our key areas of focus. We are already seeing how Bermuda's fintech ecosystem is acting as a catalyst for growth, not just in itself, but across industry. As an example, the new laws have piqued the interest of the insurance-linked securities market and has also created the potential for a new breed of Bermuda-based incorporations from digital asset funds. Cyber insurance is also an important piece of the puzzle for the Bermuda market. Furthermore, the tech-savvy and modern business approach that Bermuda is inculcating serves to enhance our appeal in the eyes of the next generation of business leaders, investors, and high net worths. Bermuda has long been a domicile of choice for insurance, asset management, and trusts, among many other industries, thanks to the stability, quality, and ease of doing business it offers. A combination of these same features, along with our future-focused approach, are now attracting technologists and innovators, the likes of whom are with us today. With the theme of today being focused on the future, I look forward to hearing the outcomes of today's discussions, some of which I am sure will be controversial and will challenge us all to reimagine how we do business. Here now to tell us more about the ongoing development of the international fintech industry in Bermuda, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Wayne Smith, head of the Bermuda Fintech Business Unit, to the stage. Wayne.
Mr. Premier, members of Parliament, senators, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thanks, Andy, for that introduction. So why are you here? You're here because we want to show you the Bermuda ecosystem and let you see for yourselves why you should domicile your business in Bermuda. We want your business. We want you to be successful. We want to create jobs. We want you to make money because we know that if you make money, everybody wins. We have a technology-friendly government, one of the most respected regulators in the world, and a business environment that helps entrepreneurs, innovators, creators, investors, venture capitalists to successfully launch their businesses in Bermuda. Many of us in this room have been saying for years that fintech will provide banking services to the 1.7 billion adults on the planet who currently do not have access to financial services, a bank account, a credit score, lending opportunities, as we know and take for granted today. We are building an ecosystem to make this a reality. Deltec Bank, Signature Bank, and Silvergate Bank are currently doing business with our fintech clients. However, we are also developing alternative solutions to banking, using Bermuda as a sandbox for open and decentralized finance. And you'll hear a little bit more about that today in a few minutes when the Premier speaks. We have been busy training Bermudians for the jobs that are coming. To date, 500 Bermudians have taken 1,200 courses in a range of subjects, including, but not limited to, coding, cryptography, compliance, blockchain boot camps, and the like, to name but a few. So when you domicile your business in Bermuda, we have qualified Bermudians eager to work and ready to make our contribution to this fourth industrial revolution that is being driven by technology. Tomorrow afternoon, I will be moderating a banking panel at an event called Tech Beach Bermuda to explore the future of banking and to show you how to successfully launch your business in Bermuda and have banking services, even if you're working with cryptocurrencies. I hope to see you there. And now I will tell you a story. It's the story of a young man by the name of Andrew Henderson from Cleveland, Ohio. He founded a company called Nomad Capitalist. Andrew's guiding principle is the advice that his father gave to him when he was just 12 years old. His father said to him, "Andrew, you don't have to live in Cleveland, Ohio for the rest of your life." His father told him to go where you're treated best. So that's what Andrew tells his clients. Go where you're treated best. I connected with Andrew last week and told him that Bermuda is working diligently every day to be the place that treats you best. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, we have a chance to use technology to help the less fortunate, to level the playing field, and to truly make the world a better, fairer, safer place. But it is time to stop talking about what is possible and actually do it. Bermuda has an environment that's purpose-built for this to happen. Come to Bermuda. It is not just an absolutely breathtakingly beautiful place to live, work, and play, but we are also working hard every day to be the place that treats you best. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're really excited to have you here, especially our guests from overseas. My name is Kevin Richards. I'm the BDA Business Development Manager for Technology. It's my pleasure to introduce our opening panel. But before that, I really wanted to give a special thanks to our sponsors, Circle, the Swan Group, Goslings, Chain That, Exceedance, Appleby, 24 Exchange, Conyers, Blockchain Triangle, Walkers, and of course, the Hamilton Princess and Beach Club. Some housekeeping items just before we get underway. Today's Wi-Fi code is BTW19. And for those of you who are on social media, our Twitter handle at the BDA is @InvestBermuda. And we encourage you to use our hashtag Bermuda Tech Week and send your comments and questions to us throughout the day. Remember to turn your phone on silent. And if you have any questions, please see the BDA team out in the foyer. I'm really, really excited to introduce our first panel, which will be moderated by our favorite board member, Jessel Mendez. He told me to say that. And will be a discussion between Premier David Burt, who's been leading the charge for Bermuda into the future with technology and money, and the CEO of Circle, Jeremy Allaire. Please, may I welcome you guys to the stage.
Tech Week has been kind of exciting, and it's so good to see so many people out today. But before we get to the opening panel, I'm going to take the, privilege that I have and use this opportunity to make a very special announcement. Good morning and welcome. Today, it gives me great pleasure to announce that the Bermuda government has committed to accept for payment of government taxes, fees, and services, one-to-one backed US dollar digital currencies that get licensed by the Bermuda Monetary Authority. For the past 6 months, the Chief FinTech Advisor, Dennis Pitcher, and the FinTech Business Unit, led by Major Wayne Smith, have worked hard to advance our FinTech strategy. Today's announcement will establish Bermuda as an example to other jurisdictions on how to adopt and benefit from the advancement of technology around digital currencies. We are leveraging our position as a jurisdiction with a history of expertise in regulating financial services and our bespoke regulatory framework around digital assets to provide an environment to drive and showcase financial innovation. There are many views from legislators and regulators on approaches to digital currency, and lots of talk, but little action. For Bermuda, the risk of launching our own digital currency outweigh the opportunities. However, we recognize that there are experts who have been developing this technology to simply create digital versions of existing money that can be used to improve our financial system today. This technology represents an opportunity to increase access to and lower the cost of financial services. There is a wide ecosystem of players keen to build the future of financial services on top of these digital dollars, and many have expressed an interest in becoming licensed under the Bermuda Digital Asset Business Act and work closely with Bermuda to advance this initiative. Our combined hope is to showcase to the world that there is a clear path providing regulatory clarity around this industry by focusing on the risks and to use Bermuda's small, contained ecosystem as a place where foreign regulators and legislators can come to touch, see, use, and ultimately understand the benefits of this revolutionary technology. On the one-to-one US dollar stablecoin issuer front, we are pleased to announce the support of Circle and Coinbase and their US dollar coin and Center Consortium, Binance with BUSD, Trust Token with TUSD, Stably with USDS, and Hub Culture's Ven with Ultra USD for this initiative. We are pleased to have Jeremy Allaire from Circle, the first company to have achieved a full license under our Digital Asset Business Act, here with us to personally give his support, as well as Jin Chow, Chief Strategy Officer of Binance. We welcome and are grateful of the participation of others who have expressed interest in getting licensed and will happily adopt their digital currencies into our ecosystem as they meet the high standards set by our Bermuda Monetary Authority. On the open financial ecosystem front, we are pleased to announce the support of Celsius Network, who offers lending services and pays interest on deposits, SALT, the first digital asset lending company and institutional custodian, MAPay, a healthcare payments provider, Sablier, a payroll solutions provider, and Stablehouse, a stablecoin exchange provider. We are also pleased to welcome Patrick Baraducci, Consensus's global fintech co-head, whose codified payments tool will make it easy for governments and merchants to accept digital payments. We welcome any and all companies serious about developing the future of open finance to come to Bermuda and work with us to turn Bermuda into a global innovation sandbox and to showcase to the world the potential of this exciting new technology. For more information, I invite all of you to please visit currencystandard.com to learn about this initiative and how you and your company can join in the future that we are building here in Bermuda. Thank you.
Hello? Am I on? We're all good? Can you hear me? All right, excellent. Premier, that's big news. Do you guys want to hear more about that? Not yet. So good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be moderating this first session of the day. Having lived in Bermuda for a number of years, I've watched the Bermuda market grow and evolve to become a world-class financial center. The common catalyst of growth in all our sectors is innovation. As a result, it's no surprise that we are not only embracing the digital revolution, but also becoming a major global player. So let's talk about Bermuda's technology journey. How it started, what is it, what have we accomplished, and the vision for the future. You have all heard from our Premier, the Honorable David Burt. Welcome, Mr. Premier.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Mr. Jeremy Allaire, CEO of Circle, the first company, as the Premier said, to be granted a full license under the Bermuda new Digital Asset Business Act. Jeremy is one of the most respected leaders in his field and has spent the last 25 years building internet technology platforms and companies. And today, as the founder and CEO of Circle, he believes in creating a financial economy that is more accessible, open and fair for everyone, using blockchain and crypto technology. So, how many people in the audience are fintech experts? All right.
Oh, come
Some,
on, Bruce, put up your hand.
but not a lot. So let's use the first few minutes to demystify fintech. Jeremy, blockchain and digital assets will rule the future. What are they, and how will they impact us?
Sure. Just at a high level, when you think about fintech, and actually when we were starting Circle 6.5 years ago, at that time, fintech really represented sort of technology companies that were basically, building slightly better user interfaces on top of the legacy financial system, legacy financial infrastructure. As I like to say, they're putting lipstick on a pig. That was not, fundamental disruption. If you look at the internet more broadly, the sort of transformation from, putting a newspaper on the internet by taking a copy of the New York Times and putting it on a PDF and putting that PDF on the internet, as opposed to, building a completely new content model like a Google did. The fundamental changes in industry really require like fundamental infrastructure changes. And so when we got started, we looked at cryptocurrency and public blockchain infrastructure in particular, and we saw that this really was the breakthrough that was necessary for enabling people, businesses, but kind of counterparties to be able to safely interact in economic arrangements over the internet in a trustless way, and to do that in an open global way, the same way we can openly share and exchange information to anyone who's connected to the internet in a permissionless fashion. So that sort of same open, global, connected model for media, communications, et cetera, was starting to emerge. Like the kernel for that was starting to emerge, really with Bitcoin. And it was very clear that the real transformation that we wanted to see in the global financial system really required kind of starting at that base layer, rebuilding the fundamentals of how economic activity is organized. And that's where cryptocurrency, crypto assets, blockchain technologies come in. They create the foundation for rebuilding all of the economic arrangements that we have in the world.
Okay, Premier, why don't you jump in with your take on the whole digital revolution, please?
Well, from the perspective that I always relay to the country and persons of which I speak to, is technology is the future. And if you just look at the 5 out of the 6 largest companies in the world by market cap are all technology companies. And that means that this is the way, clearly, that the world is moving. And so we have technology more broadly, and then we have fintech itself. The position from Bermuda's perspective is that we want to make sure that we remain a center of innovation in financial services. And if persons and companies cannot innovate from our shores, they will innovate in other places. And we know that we have seen where Bermuda has, in some places, fallen behind. It could be argued that we may have fallen behind and became uncompetitive in tourism, but it's important that we remain competitive in financial services. And so the view that we take when it comes to making sure that Bermuda has a very progressive regulatory regime in all areas of financial services is to make sure that persons can innovate from our shores and create the products here that are going to power the next generation of financial services. And I think we're actually doing that as we speak.
Mm-hmm. You touched on something I thought was really powerful, Premier, is at the end of the day, we have a wonderful financial services industry. This is really going to bolster that, but at the same time, it's going to bring new types of companies to the jurisdiction as well. It might be helpful for the audience to just understand when this journey started for you.
Well, this journey, well, I think it's a couple of places. But before I get into that, I just wanted to compliment Jeremy on his socks, by the way. There was a reporter who took a picture the other day of me in shorts, like they had never seen me in shorts before, but you know.
He's representing,
I'm telling
I got you.
He is wearing the heck out of those Bermuda shorts. All right, Jeremy.
Well done, Jeremy.
The journey started, I think it's in 2 places, because, of course, not to get too political, but when the Progressive Labor Party was in opposition, the former opposition leader, Mark Bean, preached about fintech. It was a part of what we did in so far as opposition, and when we came into government, we made sure that we went ahead and continued to push that agenda. And it was a week after I came into office, Hub Culture, which was led by Stan Stalnaker, had a retreat here on island, and I happened to be able to stop by and have exposure to that particular retreat. And with Stan, a few months later, he was back on island. He said, you know, Bermuda has an opportunity here inside of this space. Now, I will tell something that I shared with people last night. I was speaking to the Minister of Finance about this entire situation. I said, Minister, although I'm a technology guy, although my background is in technology, I'm going to tell you the truth. I really don't fully understand how all of this stuff works. But we have experts that I know, that I trust, who really know how this stuff works, and that's what's powering the future. And so with persons like Stan Stalnaker, bringing persons like Dennis Pitcher on board, we have our Global FinTech Advisory Board, we have experts and supporters like Circle who have come inside of our ecosystem, and that is what we are looking to build. And when you're talking about building an industry from the ground up, that's where we started. But if you look at where we are a year on, we've made a significant amount of progress.
Excellent. There are a number of folks in the audience that are here doing due diligence on Bermuda. Mm-hmm. What's the message from the 2 of you in terms of why they should come to the jurisdiction, not only for their businesses, but for their families and for themselves?
I'm happy to take that. We started, just for background, we started Circle, again, like 6.5 years ago, and a really important thing for us was we believed that it was important if you wanted cryptocurrency and related technologies to be broadly adopted in mainstream society, that you did need to have kind of regulatory frameworks around it. That this was, you're dealing with people's money, you're dealing with risk, you're dealing with crime, you're dealing with serious stuff. We were had become one of the most licensed companies in the world in that respect. But starting in 2018, I think a lot of companies, not just Circle, not just companies based in the U.S., but companies globally, were really seeing that there was a disconnect between how traditional government regulators were looking at digital assets and what digital assets themselves could do, what they could achieve. And our view is that we really needed to find, to really build our international business, we really needed to find a jurisdiction that like really understood the potential of digital assets, defined them as a new type of financial instrument with all of the capabilities they could have, didn't try and ramrod it into existing banking and payments law or ramrod it into existing securities law, and said, this is a new financial capability. We want to supervise it just like we supervise banks or insurance companies. We want to supervise it, and I think with reasonably high standards. So we went looking for that, and there were a number of other countries who had kind of put their hand up and passed some legislation here or there. Singapore, Switzerland, Malta, France, but very few others. And each one of those had real challenges with them. They were either really limited in scope, they didn't look at the real breadth of what you could do with financial services with digital assets. And Bermuda's was one of the broadest. And I had a chance to meet with Premier Burt at Davos in January. We had a very good conversation, and he invited our leadership team down. We came, and this was right in the midst of this sort of analysis that we were doing. And so we looked at the whole picture, which was a government that is committed to working with this industry to build sound policy around it, that is open to companies that want to innovate in this space and serve that 1.7 billion of underbanked people. That is just in general, I think, a really productive commercial environment for companies and businesses, and certainly for the employees that would work here. And then for us as a financial technology firm, knowing that Bermuda is a place where there is a lot of talent, where people work in a lot of different types of roles in traditional finance, but clearly, as the rest of the world is looking at this, want to move forward into these fintech type jobs. So all of that was really attractive, and I think the last thing I would say is just the collaborative nature of both Premier Burt and his cabinet, as well as the Bermuda Monetary Authority, who have a very rigorous process, but are also, they're practical. They want to figure out how to, work with companies that are at the cutting edge, and not just, again, try and ramrod stuff into old frameworks. So all that combined, I think, made this kind of a no-brainer. And I would encourage really any company in this industry to be really seriously looking at Bermuda as a place to build out an international business.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. Premier, did you want to jump in on that question?
I cannot add anything to what Jeremy Alea has said, except for this, that it is one of the key points in which he raised is the holy trinity that is Bermuda. And it served us well in insurance. And when I say the holy trinity, I talk about the relationship between the government, the regulator, and industry. And we've proven in insurance, we've proven in asset management that those can work very well together, and we're doing it in the same space in digital assets. And it was surprising to me, as someone who was trying to lead the charge, that when I was no longer the Minister of Finance and I just got a cabinet paper that came to me without my knowledge, and the BMA and the fintech team had done this entirely new extension to our Digital Asset Business Act. And when that happened, it said, okay, we are there, because now it doesn't have to be driven by the government anymore. It is industry making sure they're working together with the regulator, bringing it to us so that we can say we are ready to push this in place. And we're able to innovate and make changes very quickly. So the recent upgrades that we made to our Digital Asset Business Act, providing additional clarity, is going to provide additional opportunities for companies that do not have clarity in other places in the world to get that clarity with an incredibly well-respected regulator.
You both touched on sort of what other jurisdictions might be doing and looking at. Jeremy, I was, when I was sort of, preparing for this panel, I understand you gave expert testimony to the Senate, where you used Bermuda as the benchmark. Perhaps you could share some of those views with the audience.
Yeah, I mean, our view, and we've published a lot of blog posts, and you can look at the testimony as well. Our view is that the U.S. has become hostile to the digital asset industry, not entirely in every which way, but I think in some very specific ways. I think you have a securities regulator that is, I think over-aggressive. I think it has definitions around what ultimately would be deemed a security, which we think dramatically limit the possibility for innovation using digital assets. And I think it's hurting the United States. So I certainly shared all that with the Senate. I think more specifically, to get into a little bit of the detail, the really powerful thing about digital assets is that, in traditional financial, in the traditional financial world, you have very separate buckets. You have, a currency, which everyone understands a currency is this government-issued thing, and it is this medium of exchange used for payments, etc. And then you have, commodities, and we know commodities as like energy and wheat and gold and that kind of stuff. But generally things that have utility, but that still there are markets in those things. And then the third is investment contracts, so things that may have some form of potential for generating a yield, generating a return, getting dividends, or whatever those things are. And what's really powerful about digital assets is that a company can design a digital asset that simultaneously is all three of those things. It can, for one user, let's say it's a digital asset that is utilized to raise capital for a game platform. And that's capital that's raised. But that same digital asset is utilized by ecosystem participants in that game ecosystem for kind of staking it and getting other benefits for participation in that ecosystem. And that digital asset can also be utilized within the game, and ultimately even end users could use it to pay for goods and services in the game. So it can be a currency, a commodity, and an investment contract. It can be all three at the same time. It's like the Heisenberg principle in physics. It depends on how you're looking at it and so on. And the key thing here is that Bermuda has a definition of digital assets that recognizes that this is the new reality. And it gives a way for companies to issue those, market those, sell those, trade those, exchange those, use those for payments, and all the other things that you can do with them with the appropriate amount of supervision around it, but in a way where the innovators, the creators of these crypto assets can do really innovative things that are transformative to businesses, services, and of course financial services. So I think that's really the kind of critical thing. And I think Bermuda's way out ahead on this, basically, than any other country.
Awesome, awesome. All right, we're halfway through the panel. How many of you are becoming fintech experts? We're getting more hands. All right, we're making progress. Let's talk about the current state and the future state. And let's reflect on our success to date. Premier, maybe if you can share our successes to date.
Well, our successes to date, Bermuda, the Digital Asset Business Act came into force in September of 2018. So it's been in place for approximately 13 months now. And in those 13 months since it's come into place, Bermuda has 3 licensees underneath that particular act. We also have 8 active offices in Bermuda. There are 31 jobs which have been created in Bermuda which would not have existed if it was not for the Digital Asset Business Act. And as we see with announcements today and others, there is going to continue to be growth in this industry. But we are taking the long game. And the reason why we're taking the long game is that we're not trying to be, the flash in the pan, the real fancy thing, and we're not trying to be everything to everybody. Bermuda is not an inexpensive jurisdiction in which to operate. It is not easy to get licensed by the Bermuda Monetary Authority. There have been many persons who have tried and have not met the bar. And so our message is very simple. If you are one of those really good blue chip companies that, as Jeremy has said, is looking for a place to actually build out and have clarity so that you can get rid of some of the challenges of which you may have in other places, we are the jurisdiction of choice, and we are going to continue to progress in that area. So I am very hopeful. I am incredibly hopeful. And from a domestic perspective, there is always a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise as, what does this mean? How does this work? I am not focused on that because I can tell you, and I refer to it on many occasions, and it was Brian O'Hara that said that the same noises of which they were hearing in the 80s about the insurance industry are the same noises which people are making now about the fintech industry. And we know how that insurance turned out for Bermuda, and we are just going to continue the growth and progress of financial services. So there's been a lot of progress to date, and there's going to be even more progress. And with the announcement today about us speeding up adoption, it's going to be incredible. Dennis Pitcher told me that he holds USDC, and he is working with one of the companies which is a part of this announcement today, Celsius, and is getting paid 8% weekly on his USDC. I can assure you that there are many people in this audience who says, I can get 8% if I deposit my money, and they're like, sign me up, let me know how to do it. Financial services is changing and will be completely transformed. And this is what we must continue to push, and we're going to be the place where that's going to be led, because it is ultimately necessary for our future survival as a country.
Thank you, sir. Jeremy, with regard to Circle, in terms of your progress to date, you touched on sort of your decision-making. I'm curious as to how long that took, just out of curiosity, from the time you met the Premier to the time you landed, and also maybe touch on kind of what Circle looks like today in Bermuda.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, a couple things. So, the kind of process of trying to figure out what an international jurisdiction would be for us was about a year process, but the process from meeting Premier Burt through that licensing was about 6 months, and that I think was about right, given the scope of what we ultimately are hoping to do here, and I think for Circle there are kind of several key pieces of our business. So one is, which was partly announced or talked about today, which is we have kind of been reinventing payment systems using cryptocurrency by building US dollar coin, which is the fastest growing US dollar cryptocurrency in the world. It's the safest, it's the most transparent. It's done in a consortium that we co-founded with Coinbase, a consortium called Center. So that's one piece which now Bermudians will have access to, and both taking dollars in a traditional bank and tokenizing them into cryptocurrency dollars, utilizing them with savings or lending or payments or other services that are out there, which is really exciting. So that first piece is a really critical one. And one which, again, we see the benefits of working with the Bermuda licensing scheme around. The second is a couple of businesses in essentially institutional and retail trading of cryptocurrencies. So a trading, kind of over-the-counter trading business and an exchange business. We are in the process of operationalizing those internationally, and so that is not yet operational here. They're existing businesses, but those are for people who want to speculate on things like Bitcoin or Ethereum or other popular cryptocurrencies. And then the third is a business that we run called Seed Invest, which we're really excited about. Seed Invest is the largest equity crowdfunding company in the United States. So they have helped hundreds of companies raise hundreds of millions of dollars by launching securities offerings directly over the internet to investors who are investing directly over the internet. So if you are familiar with the concept of an ICO, that's kind of what ICOs did. They did unregulated securities offerings to people, and a lot of them got in trouble, some got to jail, some got fined. But we know that if you want to do securities offerings on the internet, you need to do that in a compliant way. And so this company already does that and is the leader in doing that in a compliant way for traditional investing, like buying stock in a company. But now we believe the future is people purchasing digital assets. And so the recent changes coming to the way in which digital asset offerings can be done through Bermuda is really critical to what we want to do. And we want to be able to provide a platform for any business in the world that wants to tokenize assets or launch a business with a digital asset to be able to do that in a compliant way using open standards. So that third business is one we're really, really excited about, which is we think very much the future of how capital markets will work and how capital formation will work for a lot of companies around the world. So those are the three, and we're just getting started ultimately with operationalizing some of that here, and then continuing in consultations with the government on changes to these policies, which are necessary to do some of these things.
Awesome, thank you, sir. Premier, I think that's a lovely segue to the news you just announced. I know there's going to be a press conference with more scoop. Any chance you could maybe just share some highlights with the audience?
Highlights are that there are different strategies that countries can take, and you can take the strategy of doing it yourself, or you can take the strategy of which Bermuda is adopting in many aspects, such as digital identity and also currency and payments, in that we want Bermuda to be that ecosystem where private sector players can feel comfortable to develop and innovate inside of Bermuda. I believe the private sector can do innovation better than the public sector can do, and we want to make sure that that innovation can happen here. So when we're talking about payments, I mean, there's things that are simple. So we know the challenges that some persons, and I'm going to speak to the room, and people don't get mad at me and start throwing things at me when I talk about land tax, but we have land tax in Bermuda, and everyone gets a land tax bill. Dennis was telling me that, in the future, it will be possible, that when your land tax bill gets sent out, it's still sent out in the mail, but we'll be doing it electronically soon. But when you get this thing in the mail, it will have a QR code on it, and you can literally just take out your phone that has USCC on it, scan, and your land tax is paid. That is the future when we're talking about financial assistance and the money that's given out to seniors and other persons. The fact is that they can have these wallets on their phones. The money can be distributed that way, and that means that it's not limited to a select number of vendors. Other vendors inside the ecosystem Bermuda can participate and accept that money under regulated circumstances. So these are the types of advances of which you can see. We want to make sure that companies that want to come, that people who want to come, that have BUSD, that have the other tokens, whether it's USD, USDC, all these various one-to-one backed stablecoins can pay their government taxes, their payroll taxes, fees, services, whatever, inside of our ecosystem, and we think that that will drive adoption. I remember, Jeremy, that you had an interview on CNBC a few months back, and I remember someone had asked you the question, and they said, where in the world can you pay, your taxes with digital currency? I think you now have an answer.
I do. We just put out a blog post about it today.
That's big news. That's really good. And I'm glad you guys didn't throw anything, because if you missed, it's coming at me. All right, we have a few minutes left. Why don't we close with the vision question? What does the fintech sector in Bermuda look like in the next 1 to 3 years?
Okay. Well, I'm going to speak broadly philosophically, and then I'm just going to speak in general, because the fact is that you don't build industries inside of a country while focusing on narrow political self-interest. And I say that to make a point for just our domestic audience, but also the international audience. Because two of the people who have been most key in this push, one has been Kevin Richards, and everyone knows Kevin Richards' pedigree, and one has been Dennis Pitcher. And Dennis Pitcher previously, I remember I got a lot of flack internally for appointing him to this position, as Dennis has been known previously to be critical of some policies of the Progressive Labor Party. But the fact is that as a country, we need to figure out how we are going to work together collectively to advance our interests. And so if the leader of the Progressive Labor Party and the former Shadow Minister of Finance can embrace and work with the former Minister of Finance's son, and also a former critic of, or a critic of the party, to say, let's put down the old barriers and let's work together to build this industry, I think that it makes sense for where we are focused as an entire country. Because this is going to be big. It is going to transform the way in which the world works. No one in this room right now can imagine the world without the internet. In 20 years, no one will be able to imagine the world without distributed ledger technologies and the advances of which they will bring. It is going to be truly transformative, and we have an opportunity to seize that initiative and make sure that Bermuda can be that place where it's built. So when Major Smith talks about the investment of which the government is making and making sure that persons locally are trained, and we have free online courses for any resident in the country to learn about this industry, when I get emotional talking about the 12 young Bermudians that right now are in an intensive coding boot camp, learning to make sure that companies like Circle and XBTO and others can have developers that are ready to build here in this country, this is transformative. And so it is important that all of us recognize that no progress will be made if we find time to try to shoot ourselves for short-term and narrow political gain. The business industry is with us, the regulator is with us, the Business Development Agency is with us, many persons around the political spectrum are with us, and we need to recognize as a country, technology is the way and the future of the world, and we all must get on board to make sure that the next generation can be as prosperous as this one, and that's the vision that we have.
Awesome, awesome. Amazing things happen. I was just going to say amazing things happen when you harness the power of the team. Jeremy, Circle, 1 to 3 years from now, what does it look like in Bermuda?
Yeah, I mean, I maybe would comment less on Circle and maybe help people imagine, what becomes possible with, with this technology. I mean, I think we're going to go from a world today where, cryptocurrency is sort of viewed as a kind of early adopter thing that mostly people speculate with as an investment, to cryptocurrency being put in the hands of literally billions of people in mobile applications that they use daily, and where they're able to exchange value with each other the same way that they can exchange a photo or send a text message instantly, globally, for free, without friction, no matter what country you live in, whether you're rich or poor. Just global, ubiquitous value exchange is going to emerge. It's going to be built on top of these blockchain infrastructures. That's something we see happening over the next few years. And the key thing there is that's just the first step, which is how do we just make the exchange of value free for everyone in the world, just like exchanging information is free for everyone in the world today. There's no one who charges a tax or a toll or a fee for that. The financial industry charges taxes and tolls and fees to move value around. That will go away, that will drop to zero, those business models will get destroyed, payments will be a free service on the internet. I think the next step, though, is the fundamental breakthrough of this technology is not just that you can move value around, is that you can take contracts, financial relationships, and you can codify them, literally. You can represent them in code, you can put them on an infrastructure that is trustless, and then allow businesses and people and businesses and other businesses to enter into economic contracts with each other anywhere in the world in a trustless way. And that allows us to start really thinking about really rebuilding the way economic relationships much more broadly happen. So I think that's the kind of thing that plays out. I think it will restructure very much how and where value gets created in the financial system, and it should ultimately lead to a world which is as I think wonderful for all of us in the world of information and knowledge and content and media on the internet, having that same level of ubiquity and seamlessness and efficiency in the world of the financial system.
But sorry, Jeremy, if you could also maybe touch on, because I know this is such a hot topic, but I know when your plans were to come to Bermuda, it was also a job creation mandate.
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely.
Sorry, would you maybe just share
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
Yeah,
So we recently obviously received the Class F license. We are committed to, in the first 2 years, hiring 30 people. We are recruiting now. I think we have one of our directors of recruiting actually here at Tech Week. And there are kind of key roles that are needed to support different parts of the business that we're building.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Folks, that's all the time we have. Of course, yeah, I was just going to ask for final thoughts, please.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, I only have 2 final thoughts. One is she's going to be very embarrassed and mad at me, but it's my sister's birthday, so I just want to say happy birthday, Winston.
Love you, sir.
And then I guess the final thing of which I want to say is that we always say, build it and they will come. Bermuda has built it. Bermuda is continuing to build, and for all of those who are here with us, or those of us who are watching us live on the internet, this is a place where you should come. And it is a place where you can build a business where you will find a hospitable home and a government and a regulator that is ready to work in order to build the future. So I hope that you will join us here in Bermuda.